Hello, this is Elizabeth Griffin, the Black Romance Writer, and welcome back to my channel. Have you been paying attention to Madam Secretary Kristi Noem's testimony at the Homeland Security budget hearings? If so, then you know that there has been discussions about habeas corpus and what it means. Madam Secretary Kristi Noem was asked by Senator Maggie Hassan, what does the term habeas corpus means? And of course, our Kristi Noem had an answer. She began to explain to Senator Hassan as well as the Senate body that habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to remove an individual from the country. While the Secretary of Homeland Security was giving this definition, she was interrupted by Senator Hassan, who made it known that habeas corpus is a legal right that every individual in the United States has. And that right is to not be illegally detained without undergoing due process, without being seen by a judge. And no one in the United States should be held or imprisoned without having the right and the protection of habeas corpus. As I watch this back and forth between Madam Secretary Kristi Noem and Senator Maggie Hassan, I realize that even though Kristi Noem gave a definition of habeas corpus that was contradictory to the actual meaning of the legal term, I believe Kristi Noem knows exactly what habeas corpus means. There are people on social media who are saying that she is misinformed, or she is uneducated, or she is ignorant to the law. However, I believe Madam Secretary Kristi Noem knows exactly what habeas corpus means. However, because this Trump administration is putting all the power in the executive branch with President Donald Trump, I believe the narrative that is being put forth is that he has all the power and that he is the one who has the sole authority to deport people from the United States. And Kristi Noem is not the only one that is espousing these views. I believe the border czar Tom Homan also shares these feelings, as well as the FBI Director Kash Patel and the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. So while people are making fun of Kristi Noem, I believe she knows exactly what she's doing and what she's espousing.